All right, we are back. And as I said, we were talking about the duty of fair representation. Don't hold grudges. If you're a steward, don't let your personal feelings about a member affect how you handle the grievance. Because remember, you're not defending an individual, you're protecting the contract. And so it's going to be not just the individual at this time, but the next person and possibly even you. What you don't want to have is these bad feelings that keep workers from joining together to create leverage. You can find an example here of a situation at one of the locals, and the court finds the union liable for a situation in which they let personal feelings and antagonisms get in the way of an evaluation of the grievance. Preparing the grievance is so important. Thinking about it, thinking strategically and intelligently about the organizing possibilities of it is very, very essential. The other thing also is you need to look ahead. Because remember that a word on the grievance vocabulary is precedent. And a precedent is something which is done once, becomes a guide for what's going to be done in a similar situation in the future. And so think about what you're doing now will mean tomorrow. And if it's going to be potentially harmful, think twice about filing the grievance. But look ahead a little bit as you work on the grievance. And I know if you're a new steward, this is a lot to do. But if you're new and you have a case, get an experienced steward, sit down, talk it over with the officer, talk it over with your chief steward, and this is the way that you're going to learn. And the experience that you will get is much more important than listening to me talking to you on this class. As I said, you're not defending an individual, you're defending the contract. And this is very, very important if you have a person in your workplace who is not popular, or even if you have a grievance that affects a non-member. If it is a clear violation of the contract, if it is a violation of past practice, if it is a violation of just plain unfair, it is a protection that's going to be provided to every member, to every person in your workplace. And so you're not looking just at one person, you're looking at defending your union contract. So, as I said, as you prepare, go to your grievance file. Have there been previous grievances on this contract article? Have there been similar situations? Maybe you've had an arbitration, or maybe someone else has had an arbitration on a similar situation. Because you want to remember Einstein's law of insanity. That is, don't do something which didn't work in the past and expect the results to be different. Again, the way that the A2 shops are now is you're looking at a dramatically changing workplace. You have new managers, new owners, new political control, spinning off into subcontractors. And so keeping track of all this stuff is very, very difficult, but it's very, very important that you know what the history is of a case that you're picking up. Again, ask management, can you prove it? Management will come to you with an allegation. You want to know, can they prove it? For example, as I said, they have surveillance cameras, security cameras in a bus or in a garage. They need to hand over to you that copy of the footage. Even if you can't get it from them, you need to demand that it be preserved. We are seeing for other unions, for example, police unions, this whole issue of body cameras is now incredibly controversial and inflammatory because everything that a police officer does is now recorded and is a public document because they are public employees. And so we are looking at the impact of new technology. We're not sure where it's going to go, but it's very, very important. And so you need to know before you go ahead with the case, what does the company have as far as their documentation, as far as their proof. And if they tell you that they're not sure and that you should trust them, you just say, I'm from Missouri, show me. You also need to know, as I said, who the employer needs to call as witnesses. You need to check out their stories. Are you going to get different versions of something that happened in the workplace? For example, one employee claims another one threatened him, or a woman complains that a guy harassed her, or a supervisor harassed her. We are seeing all sorts of examples, as I said publicly today, for athletes about alleged sexual harassment and how is that affecting their employment. So go and find out, as part of your preparation, see if you can find out what's happened. Another thing which is very important, if it's a discipline case, look at your member's work history so you can evaluate previous disciplines. This is important down the road when you're looking at a potential settlement, because A, the employer has to prove that a crime was committed, but then they also have to justify that the punishment fit the crime. And looking at someone's previous employment record is very, very important to this. If they have a clean record and they worked there a long time, you have a good opportunity to use that as leverage to get what you want. But if they have a bad work record, it's only going to be tougher for you. But you need to know, as part of preparation, what's the history of the particular grievance. All right, you then are ready to file. VCR, if you look at your grievance overview, these are the terms. V is the violation. As you write up your form, do it briefly. The company violated article such and such of the contract by not paying someone or by not providing clear air in the shop, anything. That's all you have to say. Don't write a novel. Don't write everything that you know, because the more you write, the more likely you are to provide something which is helpful to the company. List the contract articles that apply for this particular situation, but also include the recognition clause. For example, the best language is the employer has violated the contract, including Article 1, the recognition clause, and Article X, covering the situation. And then add the language and all other applicable articles. We will see in just a minute why the recognition clause is so important. And then R is your remedy. We've talked about that. What do you want the management to do to resolve this case? And it's very important that if it's a discipline or discharge case, that the management be asked to make the grievant whole. And that means paying everything. For example, if a grievant is out, excuse me, and has been fired, and it takes you 2 or 3 weeks to process the grievance, and the company says, okay, well, we were wrong, we'll bring him back. Made whole means getting insurance payments, it means getting overtime, it means getting a paid holiday, anything. So don't just say we want back pay. We want to have the person made whole. Okay, this is a repeated part, but it is so important. The recognition clause. And you need to read the document about the recognition clause so that you'll know what I'm talking about. Because the employer recognizes the union as the sole and exclusive bargaining agent for the purpose of collective bargaining in respect to wages, hours of employment, and all other terms and conditions of employment. And that is everything. And that is huge, because management goes to business school to learn how to cut down on the power of the union in the workplace. The recognition clause expands it. If you're in negotiations, you will know that the company is always looking to expand the management rights clause. And if you look in your contract, it sometimes goes on for pages, listing everything that they can do. And sometimes management will simply say, well, we have the management rights clause, we can do this. And that's when a situation, for example, in the workplace is changed. The recognition clause is the equivalent of that. It's not as lengthy, but it gives the union the right to represent members, to grieve and to bargain over anything that goes on in the workplace, around the workplace, or related to the workplace. And as I said, related to the workplace because more and more unions are having to deal with the questions of off-duty conduct. And we'll be talking about that in the last session where we talk about tough issues. But it used to be that you could do anything you wanted off the workplace as long as you could show up and ready to go to work. The company didn't do anything to you. Now, as we are seeing, for example, in the professional athletes, the Professional Football Players Association, we are seeing airline pilots who are disciplined for posting stuff on Facebook. We are seeing people, member of the union in September of 2017, as I'm doing this, who was an IBEW member in San Francisco and was fired by his employer for showing up at the Charlottesville demonstration waving a Nazi flag. Normally these are issues which is private, but because it was related to the workplace and because it was obviously captured on video, the company decided to take a stand. And the union then has to decide what it wants to do. But you have the right under the contract to pick up these issues. And again, I know you're tired of hearing me use the word leverage. It is so important because leverage is what helps you settle grievances that you otherwise can't win. It means getting your members and your non-members together and supporting the particular case. It involves communications. It involves strategic thinking. It means you don't accept discriminatory clauses in your contract. It means you look to create workplace and community activities to create allies that will help you out. It means, as I said, creating a communications network. It also involves your decision of how much you want to let your non-members participate. For example, if you're going to have a discussion of an important grievance that affects a lot of people at a union meeting, you are not required by law or by practice to let non-members attend the meeting. So you have to decide as a strategic decision, do we want to let them in so they can see how good the union is, and then we'll go to them and see if we can get them to join. And we want to stress that any grievance that we win affects everybody just the way the contract does. So it's very important that you read the article, Leveraging and Lawyering, that will help you understand the value of this in the organizing model of leveraging versus the servicing model of lawyering, where you're simply filing the steps of the grievance procedure and going through the meetings. And this is something which is very important. Your officers can handle the truth. And you need to sit with the particular grievance or potential grievance and say, I want to know everything. I want to know the truth. Because they may tell you stuff that hurts the grievance, but you need to know about it now as you prepare rather than learning it as an unwelcome surprise down the road. And it's a question of essential union practice. And therefore you will decide whether you want to file a grievance or how far you want to take it, knowing what you have.